Welcome to Drive the Daf, clear, structured explanation of the daily Daf in 20 minutes. You can even follow in the car.
Pesachim Daf Nun contains the final amud in the third parak of the Masechta, parak Elu Ivrin, and then it begins about halfway through the Daf, the fourth parak Makam Shinagu. So the last amud in the third parak has the Gemara analyzing a series of psukim in the Navi Zacharias discussing a nevuah about the war of Gog and Magog, Armageddon, the major war just before Mashiach comes, and the time of Mashiach itself. The Gemara will analyze and offer a few explanations for a few of the psukim that are discussed here. The first one is Mahu will be on that day lo yeh or yikaros v'kifoin, that the light will no longer be yikaros, instead it'll be kifoin. So what do those words mean? So yikaros means precious or heavy, and kifoin means light or floaty. So something about light will switch from being heavy to light, to being floaty. So the Gemara has three explanations. Number one, the Gemara says this is referring to sunlight in this world, which is very bright, but compared to the light of Elam Haba, it'll seem to be light and floating. It'll be not significant. The second is that this is referring to Negoim and Ohalos, the halachos of Nega and the halachos of Tumas oil, which are very heavy, they're very weighty, Yikarin in this world, but they'll be light and floaty in the next world. They'll be much easier to understand. The third shot is that this is referring to people. People in this world who are very weighty and heavy and have a lot of importance and they carry a lot of weight. Those people in the next world will be lightweights. Nobody will take them seriously. The Gemara says that it's very similar to an incident that happened with Rav Yosef ben Rav Yeshua ben Levi, who became sick and he slipped into a coma. When he came back and he woke up, his father said, "What did you see?" So he said, "I was in the next world. I had a brief vision into the next world, and I saw that it's upside down. The people which over here are on the top, over there on the bottom, and the people which are here on the bottom, over there are on the top." So he said, "You saw the straight world, the real world. Our world is the upside down world." So then he asked him, what were they saying there? So he said they were saying as follows. They were saying, Ashim Mishabal Lakan Matamud Biyode, praiseworthy is he who comes here and he has his learning in his hand, meaning he knows his learning. And they also say that those who were killed by the government, Huge Malchus, nobody could stand near them because of their greatness. Now, who are they? So the Gemara asks, who are these people who were killed by the government? The Gemara says, if it's referring to Rabbi Akiva and the other people who were killed, the other Talmidei Chachamim, the Saharuge Malchus who were killed, so that's not just because they were killed by the government that people can't stand in their zone. It's because of their greatness. So who's it referring to? That the reason that people can stand in their zone is because of the fact they were killed by the government. So the Gemara says it refers to the Haruge Lud, that's Pappos and Lilianus, who claimed guilt for the death of the daughter of the Roman emperor in order to save the rest of Klal Yisrael, even though they themselves actually were innocent. So they got tremendous schar for that. Okay, the next pasuk the Gemara wants to analyze says as follows: al matzlos hasus kodesh lashem. On that day, al matzilos hasus kodesh lashem. The matzilos, which the Gemara will define, of the horse will be holy to Hashem. What does this mean? What is the matzilos of the horse and why are they becoming holy to Hashem? So the Gemara's first pshat is that it's referring to land outside Yerushalayim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will add it on to be part of Yerushalayim. That's why it means it'll become holy to Hashem. Matzilas Asos means how far a horse could run in half the day, meaning from the morning until the Matzil, the Tzel, the shadow is directly underneath him, which is midday. That's the distance around Yerushalayim, which will be added on to be part of Yerushalayim itself. Second pshat, the Gemara says, is that the adornments, the bells which hang in the horse's forelock between his eyes, those things will be donated to the Beis HaMikdash. The third pshat is similar to the first two. It's almost a combination of the two. Matzilus Asos means noon. That's when the horse's shadow is under him. And everything from morning till noon which will be donated to the Beis HaMikdash will become Kodesh LaHashem. So Gemara says, now if you look at the rest of the pasuk, the second half, it seems to fit with this understanding that we're talking about the donations to Hashem. Why? Because the rest of it says, the pots in Hashem's house, meaning the Beis HaMikdash, will be like the special kelim that are used to throw blood on the Mizbeach. Now those are made out of gold and silver, so it seems like we're saying that the pots which we use to cook the karbanos will also be made out of gold and silver, meaning to say that the Beis HaMikdash will have a lot of donations coming in. So how do you understand that? How does that fit here if we're not discussing the donations? So the Gemara says we are discussing the donations, even according to the first pshat and even the second pshat, but it's a different context. This is not flowing from the first half of the pasuk. It's saying when Klal Yisrael will become rich, the donations will be so much that all the pots will be made out of silver and gold. The Gemara now is a second kasha. If we're talking about the donations, now I understand what is meant when it says V'lo yeh kenani od beveis Hashem. This is the next pasuk. It says V'hoya kol sir b'Yerushalayim Yehuda kodesh Hashem. Every pot will be holy to Hashem. There won't be a Kanani in the house of Hashem. Kanani means a merchant, not a Canaanite only. It also means a merchant. It means to say that the Beis HaMikdash will have lots of funds, so that the people that are in charge of the Beis HaMikdash won't have to set up business deals in order to try to bring funds into the Beis HaMikdash. Because of the donations, they'll have a lot. So how does this fit? If we're not talking about people bringing a lot of donations to the Beis HaMikdash, the Gemara answers, what do we mean to say? Lo yeh kanani means ein kan ani. That's how you read it. There won't be any poor people around. Because people have riches, there won't be any poor people around. Riches will come from the spoils of the war of Gog Magog. Now, as an aside here, the Gemara has said that the word Kanani means a merchant. The Gemara says, how do you know that Kanani means a merchant? We thought Kanani means somebody who lives in Canaan. So the Gemara says, well, if you look at Parshas Vayeshev, it says, Vayar Sham Yehuda Bas Ish Kanani. Yehuda went and married the daughter of a Kanani. What do you think? Yehuda married the daughter of a Canaanite, somebody who lives in Canaan. Avram told Yitzchak, don't take a wife from Canaan. Yitzchak told Yaakov, don't take a wife from Canaan. You think Yehuda went and married a Canaanite? Must mean that it means a merchant. So now the Gemara has another source for the fact that Canaan means a merchant. It says, Canaan biyadoi moiznei mirma la'ashoik ohev. That the merchant has in his hands the scales which are false, they're weighted scales in order to trick people. So you see it means a merchant. And a third source is it says, its merchants are princes, its merchants are the respected people. So again, it has a seichareha and kinaaneha put together. The meaning is obviously very similar. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to the Psukim in Zechariah. The Gemara analyzes a few more of them. It says, V'hoya Hashem l'melech al kol ha'aretz. On that day, Hashem will become king of the entire earth. V'yemahu, on that day, Hashem echad. Hashem will be one. U'shma echad, and his name will be one. The Gemara questions both of these. Now Hashem is not one. What does that mean? The Gemara says, it means that Hashem's intentions and Hashem's actions will be understood both. Now, when something good happens to you, you say a bracha tova hametiv, you bless Hashem for the good. Something bad happens to you, you say the bracha dayan ha'emes, he's the true judge, even though it's bad, and I don't see what should be good about it, I trust that he's judging correctly. Now, and however, in time that Mashiach will come, you'll say a tova hametiv even on everything, even on the bad things. There won't be anything which looks bad that you won't understand. You'll see the good in everything, even the bad. Even the things which happened to you previously that you said a dayan ha'emes on, you will now be able to say a tova hametiv. It will be clearly a chesed. Next, the Gemara says, what does it mean that his name will be one? So the Gemara says, today there's the split in Hashem's name. There's the name that's spelled Yud K Vav K, but we don't pronounce it that way, but we pronounce it with the Aleph Daled Nun Yud. On that day, you'll be able to pronounce the Yud K Vav K with its actual spelling. The Gemara says that Rava wanted to say a drasha on the concepts, the meanings, and the seidos about Hashem's name. And an old man, which generally refers to Eliyahu Hanavi, came and said to him, if you look at the pasuk, it says le'olam. When it says the word le'olam about Hashem's name, it says it's spelled without a vav, which means it could be pronounced le'alem. The pasuk is zeshmi le'olam zezechri le'dar v'dar. So le'olam is spelled le'alem, which means to hide it. So you should be hiding it. You shouldn't be discussing these things. And the Gemara now asks, well, if you're hiding it, why does it say Zeh Zechri L'Dar V'Dar? This is my mentioning for generation to generation, which sounds like you should be discussing it. So Gemara says that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying that my name is contradictory. It is spelled one way and pronounced a different way, because on the one hand it is L'Dar V'Dar, it's forever. On the other hand, it's hidden because it shouldn't be pronounced in the way that it's spelled. This concludes Perek Elu Oivrin. And now the Gemara begins the next parak, which is Makam Shenahagu. The parak discusses the halacha of doing melacha, doing work, on Erev Pesach, the day when Pesach begins in the evening. We are supposed to not do too much work because we don't want to be distracted from all the preparations we need to do from the Yom Tov. We have to bring the carbon Pesach when there is a ability to do that. We also have to prepare everything for the Seder. We have to get rid of the chametz. We have to make matzahs. All these things have to be done on Erev Pesach. And you're supposed to have it all ready so that you can start the Seder right away so the kids don't fall asleep. So therefore, there is a potential Isser Malacha. Now the Gemara will discuss the Isser Malacha. It'll discuss where else it applies, and then also discuss varying minhagim. There are certain halachas which were accepted in certain locales and not in other locales. They're not stringent binding halachos. They are minhagim. They are customs, but the customs of a place are binding to a certain extent. And the Gemara will also discuss what happens when somebody travels from one place to another place, and the minhagim of the two places are different. So the Gemara begins by saying there are certain places where there is custom not to do malacha at all on Erev Pesach, even before Chatzos, even before midday. And there are certain places where you could do work until midday. After midday you can, but you could do before midday. So the halacha, the Gemara says, is that you should follow the minig of the place that you're in. The minig of the place, the custom there, that is the law. What if somebody leaves one place and goes to another place? So the Gemara says he has the stringencies, the chumras of both places, which means that if he goes from a place which does malacha to a place which doesn't, or vice versa, either way he cannot do malacha. Now the Mishnah adds a confusing line. It says you should not do differently than the people that are doing in the place that you're in, because it'll create a machlokes. People will see you doing one way, while the locals do a different way, and they'll start a fight. Obviously this doesn't fit with what we said before, that if you travel somewhere else you got to do like the stringencies of the place where you were in before. That's the Gemara will explain how that fits. Now, similar concept of having different halachas in different places. The halacha is that on the Shemitah year you're not allowed to work the fields, and the fruits that grew during Shemitah you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to keep storing them even into the 8th year, as long as they're available in the fields for the wild animals. Once they're not available, you have to get them out of your house. You have to get rid of them. So what if you come from a place where they're already gone? They're not available in the field. You have to get rid of them, but you come to a place where they are still available in the field. Can you eat them or can you not eat them? So the Gemara says you have the chumras of both places, and therefore you have to do beer. Whether you come from a place where they're not available or you're going to a place where they're not available, you still have to get rid of them. You yourself cannot eat them. Says Rabbi Yehuda, there's a solution, and he says we say the following things. We say go out and get your own from the field. Gemara will explain what Rabbi Yehuda means by that. So now we begin this Gemara. Now we begin the Gemara. The Gemara says the Mishnah seemed to imply that up till Chatzos is a question of custom. After Chatzos, so everybody would agree you're not supposed to be working. Now, we're talking about on Erev Pesach. The implication, therefore, is that this halacha is only true on Erev Pesach. Other Erev Yom Tovim or Erev Shabbos, you are allowed to work after Chatzos. So Gemara says that apparently appears to be not correct. There's a brisa that says anybody who does malacha on Erev Shabbos or Yom Tov after Mincha time will not see any siman bracha. He will not get any good use out of it. He'll end up spending the money that he earns in that work for nonsense. So it's not true to say to that which our Mishnah implies that it's only forbidden to work altogether after Chatzos is on Erev Pesach. It's on other Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov as well. The Gemara says no, it's different. That brisa that you brought only said in Erev Shabbos and Erev Yom Tov there is a iser, there's a problem to work. First of all, only after Mincha time it said. Mincha time, Rashi says, is referring to Mincha Ketana, which is 2.5 hours before Shkia. There it says Chatzos. That is a full 6 hours before Shkia, the hours that are adjusted by the daylight. And the second thing the Gemara says is, in that rice, it doesn't say it's usher. It just says that you will not see a sign of blessing from it, meaning you'll end up spending it on wasteful things. But to say that it's usher, then to say that it's from concise, those two things are only on Erev Pesach, and that's what our Mishnah is teaching. Now the Gemara brings a brisa on the subject. Brisa says somebody who does work on Erev Shabbos or Erev Yom Tov from Mincha time and on, or on Matzah Shabbos, which is after Shabbos has ended, the same evening, or on Matzah Yom Tov, or Matzah Yom Kippur, or at any time when you're not supposed to be really working, there's a slight hint of an Aveira. The Gemara says that includes a fast day, which was made to pray for rain. So any of those times if a person works, he will not see a sign of blessing from all of those things. Okay, now the Gemara quotes a series of brises discussing Agadata about people working on Erev Shabbos, and then it'll go on to other types of work and other Agadatas about that. So the first brisa says as follows: some people are lazy and some people are very motivated and they work hard. Sometimes the lazy people end up getting schar, they get credit, and sometimes the people who work hard get credit, and sometimes the people who work hard lose out, and sometimes the people who are lazy lose out. How's that? So it all goes whether you're working on Erev Shabbos or not. If somebody is very motivated and he's zealous, he works with alacrity, so then if he works the whole week including Erev Shabbos, then his zealousness makes him lose out because he's working Erev Shabbos. If he knows to work 6 days a week and to not work on Erev Shabbos, well, to work 5 days a week and to not work on Erev Shabbos, then he gets credit for his zealousness, and he also gets credit that he didn't work on Erev Shabbos. On the other hand, somebody who's lazy, so if he's so lazy that he doesn't work at all, not the whole weekend, not on Erev Shabbos, even though he wasn't lazy for a mitzvah purpose, but he still gets credit because he didn't work on Erev Shabbos. If, however, he's lazy, he doesn't work a whole week, but then he goes and works on Erev Shabbos, he works on Friday, then he loses out on both ends of the deal. So now the Gemara says, so what we've seen here is that if you do something good without intent to do something good, you do it for a different reason, like you don't work on Erev Shabbos just because you're lazy, you still get credit for that. So the Gemara says, Rava says that the women of Mechuzah don't work on Erev Shabbos because they're too refined, they're too high class, that you don't do work, and therefore the truth is they don't work any day, but they are in this category of somebody who doesn't work but yet gets credit for it. Now, the Gemara on a similar note says that Rava had a contradiction between two psukim. One says Ki gadol ad shamayim chazdecha, and one says Ki gadol me'al shamayim chazdecha. Your greatness is great, your kindness is great up to the sky, and then your kindness is great above the sky. Well, which is it? So the Gemara says the difference is whether you're doing kindness lishma, for the purpose of doing the kindness, or you're doing the kindness for some ulterior motive. For an ulterior motive, it goes up to the sky. If it's for intent of doing the kindness, then it is even greater than the sky itself. Similar to Rav Yehuda. Rav Yehuda is in the name of Rav. Somebody should always do Torah and mitzvahs even for the wrong reasons, because by doing it for the wrong reasons, you'll end up getting to the point where you do it for the right reasons. Okay, now we have another brisa discussing people who and their work habits. The Gemara says somebody who expects profit or good income from his wife or from his millstone is not going to get a bracha from that. So from his wife, the Gemara says that means if her work is that she brings a pair of scales to the marketplace and walks around offering to rent out the scales, it's hard work, and you get very little income from that. From the millstone, that's if somebody wants to grind flour for people, it's also very hard work, and you get very little from that. But if his business with the millstones is buying and selling the millstones, then he will make profit from that. That's a normal business, just like any other business, which could be profitable if done correctly. Okay, now we have a few more brises discussing somebody who will not see siman bracha, any blessing out of his work. So the brisa says somebody whose business is selling sticks or reeds will not get a bracha out of them because they take up a large volume and people see them and people get jealous. And when people are jealous, then it causes Shomayim to question whether or not you really deserve it, and then you'll end up losing. Next brisa says that there's a list of people who don't see bracha, and those are people who are merchants of things that they sell in the marketplace. They sit there and everybody sees them, and therefore people get jealous of them as well. People who raise small farm animals like sheep and goats, they don't see a siman bracha because they make noise and they bother people and people are upset. And again, it causes Shemayim to question you. People who cut down good, useful trees in order to sell the wood, people are upset at them as well. And somebody who always takes the good half for himself whenever you split something with him, he always makes sure to get the better half. The people look at them slantwise, and all these people don't see any bracha because of people's upsetness with them. Okay, now other things which you don't see bracha from, not only because of work, are listed in the next brisa. So one is people who write, that is, they write tefillin mezuzahs in Sifrei Torah. Next is the meturgaman, that's the person who listens to the shir of the Talmid Chacham on Shabbos and repeats it in a loud voice everybody could hear. Third thing on the list is somebody who deals with the finances of orphans in order to take care of them, and he takes a percentage. And the last thing is somebody who deals with merchandise or money that comes from overseas in a ship. So Gemara says, I understand that the meturgaman, he works on Shabbos. That's why he won't see bracha, because it looks like he's getting paid for work that's only on Shabbos. There's a heter for it if he's also doing other things, but it does look like he's getting paid for Shabbos work, and that's a problem. Somebody who deals with the money of orphans is problematic because if he makes a mistake, they can't be meichel him, they can't forgive him. They don't have the das to give him a chila. Somebody whose things come from overseas won't see bracha because eventually one of the ships is going to sink. You don't get a miracle every day that the ship comes in successfully. Sea travel was not necessarily considered safe. But what's wrong with somebody who writes? Why should people who write Sifrei Torah, why should they not see a siman bracha? There's nothing wrong with what they're doing, but the Anshe Knesset Gedolah fasted and asked Hashem that these people shouldn't get rich, because if they'll get rich, they'll stop writing. And we need Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzahs. Next brisa on the subject says that people who write Sifrei Torah, Tefillin, and Mezuzahs, they and their merchants, and those who deal with all their merchandise, will never do particularly well financially, because if they do, then they'll stop writing. So that's only if they're writing Shaloi Lishma. They're writing in order to get profit out of it. If, however, they're doing Lishma, they're doing it for the mitzvah, to spread the Kli Kodesh, then they won't stop. And therefore it's okay for them to get rich. They may actually get rich, because it wouldn't prevent them from continuing to write. Now the Gemara talks about other good minhagim that people had. Most of the people of Baishan used to not travel to the market in Tzidon because the market was on Erev Shabbos. And they didn't want to work on Erev Shabbos, so they didn't go to market on Erev Shabbos. But their children came to Rebbe Yochanan and they said, "Look, our fathers had this great meeting, but we can't do that. We need to go to the market. We need to work. So can you give us a heter for that?" So he said, "No, you should do what your fathers did, like it says, don't reject your father's good deeds. You should do that as well."
Drive the Daf is a project of the Grand Woodlands Shul and is presented by Rabbi Yitzchak Landa. Find us on YouTube or subscribe to daily emails by emailing drivethedaf@gmail.com.